Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to The Walk. Today is Wednesday, August 13th, and we're up to Hebrews 11:29. We're still talking about Moses, and we're talking about how these forefathers had faith. They knew what God had told them to do. They did it even though it didn't completely make sense in their human brains, and they trusted that God had a way to make it happen. We're also talking about the fact that they did not see the promise that God had given them to come to full fruition, but they stepped out in that bold faith anyway. So verse 29 says, "By faith the people crossed the Red Sea on dry land, but the Egyptians, when they attempted to do the same, were drowned." Now, if you read that account of that Red Sea dividing, splitting, and them being able to walk through on dry land, you will see that the water did not split until the first step had started to be made. And in that moment, the water split and the ground was dry and they were able to walk through in dry ground. They had to step out even though they weren't seeing what God had planned. Verse 30, "By faith, the walls of Jericho fell down after they had encircled for 7 days." They're being told to yell and circle a city for 7 days and that's going to give them the city. Makes no sense to the human brain. They did it by faith. They saw it happen. By faith, verse 31, "Rahab the prostitute did not perish with those who were disobedient because she had given a friendly welcome to the spies." She could have had horrible consequences for taking in those spies and helping them. But she knew God was God. She knew what God was telling her to do, and she stepped out and did it anyway. Verse 32, "And what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David and Samuel and the prophets." All of them giving us fantastic examples of what that faith was like. The Apologetic Study Bible had this to say: "Why would faith list people like Samson, Jephthah, and who experienced major failures as examples of faith? Just like believers today, they had some moments of resolute belief and other moments of doubt and disobedience. The chapter is not about how great these individuals were, but it is about how faithful God is, even when they were faithless. The author encourages us to persevere in trusting God. When God has told you and you know that God has told you, you should be moving forward with that." The Cultural Study Bible had this to say: "Speakers and writers often noted that they could comment more fully, but for the audience's sake would not do so. Sometimes they would introduce the topics that they said they would not cover. In this case, the central audience of Hebrews knew the stories well. Most first century hearers would consider Barak the official leader in Judges 4-5, even though Deborah gave the divine instructions." So that's why Barak is included. Verse 33, "Who through faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justices, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, were made strong out of weakness, became mighty in war, and put foreign enemies to flight." This is what the Cultural Study Bible had to say. This alludes to David and many of the judges. It may also refer to Samson and others. Undoubtedly, the writer of Hebrew is also referring to the faith of Daniel, presumably one of the prophets of Hebrew 11:32. With quenching the flames, it says likely Daniel's friends are in view here, whose weaknesses were turned to strength. That could evoke the return of power to Samson, but might be more general. It could be referring to other forefathers. And rooting the foreign armies, there's many leaders that were able to take over mighty armies and take on land that God had given to them and told them would be theirs. Here's the point. When we step out in that faith, God shows up. And God is faithful to bring his promises that he has told us true. Have a wonderful day. God bless, and keep walking the walk.